Okay, so the Browns just re-signed Jadeveon Clowney, and that's got a lot of people asking what's next. Could the Browns make more moves? What dominoes are left to fall in the offseason? And also, let's just talk briefly about where this defense is and where the expectations are, right? Because rightfully so, we have up and down expectations for this offense, given that we don't know how long Deshaun Watson's going to play this year, and we don't know exactly what level of Deshaun Watson are we getting, right? Are we going to get him bouncing back from this and being that top 5 form like he was in 2020, or are we going to get, something that's in between what we've seen from Deshaun Watson from his rookie year and his best year, right? Like what level are we going to get? What kind of impact is that going to have? Is play calling still going to be an issue? There's still question marks about the offense, but the defense is a little bit more complete. So we're going to go through that question. We're going to talk about who the Browns could possibly bring in. And we're also going to talk about in general, are the Browns, do they want to bring anybody in? And also, should they, right? And we'll start there. So will the Browns bring more people in? Now, it depends on what you mean by people. Will they bring in more players? Yes, there will be smaller names that will be brought in for tryouts and things like that. But if we're talking about guys who are going to get signed and pretty much be expected to start or play a significant role, like people you would sign with the expectation that they're going to make your 53-man roster, I think most of that is done. I don't think they sign another wide receiver. I think they're quite content with what they have in that room. Remember, they really like Anthony Schwartz. Now, I know that the community as a whole is down on Anthony Schwartz, but they liked Anthony Schwartz a lot more than people knew when they drafted him. And I think they still have a significant amount of enthusiasm about Anthony Schwartz, where I might view Anthony Schwartz as like his peak might be a role player. I think they see a lot more Anthony Schwartz. So I think that that's the one thing that people aren't. We look at DPJ and we go, okay, that's one guy with potential. We look at David Bell, that's one guy with the potential. And then that's kind of where it ends for most people who look at the Browns. But inside that building, I really do think that they look at Anthony Schwartz like that. That's what I think they think. I don't agree with it, but that's what they think, right? So that's where they're at. So they feel like they got 3 young guys. They have 2 guys. I think people are really underestimating the amount of work Jakeem Grant's probably going to get as a wide receiver in this offense. I don't think he's going to be exclusively a punt and kick returner and special teams captain. I think he's going to play a significant role here in this offense. So they feel like they have the 2 veterans in Jakeem Grant and Amari Cooper. And I think they feel like they're good to go on that front, right? They drafted some young guys. I think they feel like they're fine. I don't anticipate them bringing in anybody because if you look at it from their perspective, they don't feel the need. I know outside we might feel the need, but again, they're investing a significant amount in the quarterback position, and when you do that, sometimes you have to make some cuts at the wide receiving position when it comes to budgetary and money when it comes to that, right? So that's kind of where they're thinking with that. Now, offensive line, nobody's really been talking about bringing in a starter. Same thing with running. God knows we don't need another running back, right? Tight ends, you could bring in somebody, but I think they're pretty set there at tight end. And then we can flip the field, and it goes to the defensive line, and then this is where they want the Browns to add guys. Which is defensive tackle. I don't think they add somebody that they think can start. This is another situation where it's kind of like Anthony Schwartz. I think they really feel like Taven Bryan can start and will start. I think they really feel that internally. Now, again, last year they really felt like Andrew Billings could start, and that did not work out at all. He got cut by week 4. So that could go either way, but I think they have reasonable confidence in Andrew Billings. They still believe in Jordan Elliott. I'm beside that, but they still believe in Jordan Elliott. I think they believe in Tommy Togiai. And Tommy Togiai, I think he can be a good rotational guy. Sheldon Day is also another name that I think kind of gets slept on. Now, I'm not trying to say Sheldon Day is even close to a Pro Bowler or anything like that, but he's a good hand, right? He's a good hand to have in there in that rotation. He's a big stuffer. He's good against the run. He doesn't get any recognition because he's Sheldon Day and people don't notice him, and that's a good thing if you don't notice Sheldon Day when he's on the field, given what he's asked to do, because he's really more of a gap filler on that defensive line. But he does his job well. He did that job better than Andrew Billings did. So he's back, I believe, and I think he'll factor into that rotation. And then it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that other 3-tech spot where they like to have a pass rusher, right? And most of the time the Browns like to run both 3-techs as primary pass rushers to get that pressure. So I think you will see Perrion, because the likelihood that Perrion's not going to be one of the two best interior pass rushers on this team, I think would be high or low that he's not one of those guys. I think he will be one of the two best pass rushers interior on this team. That's not like a flex player like a Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. By the way, now you get the flex guys in and out. Think about it like this. You could have on your defensive line, if you really wanted to, wanted to get creative, right? Maybe you want to do something to where you can have Myles Garrett line up on 5. He'll be wide on the right shoulder, kind of in between that tight end that they'll have on Myles Garrett, of course, and on that tackle. Inside of him, right, you could slide over Perrion right there next to him to kind of take in that inside lane. And then you could put, I don't know, I would probably put somebody bigger there, but you could probably put let's say Sheldon Day, just so he could take up some space. And then you can have Jadeveon right there and slide out or maybe rotate out of Chase Winovich, because the one thing that's interesting about Chase Winovich is he has played stand-up linebacker. So you can have him, if you're not too concerned about a team's running back or tight end situation, you can have him kind of sit out there and play some Will linebacker or Sam linebacker, whichever side you want to put him on, and let him sit out there and maybe rotate down and kind of blitz off of that stand-up position, so you can have an outside rusher so Clowney can go on that inside shoulder of that tackle and really stress the offensive line here and overwhelm them. That's 5 guys only that you can get pressure with just that alignment. I mean, we can add JOK into this. I'm only adding Chase just to show you the versatility that he brings. He can go up and down. I think he'll mainly be a down lineman, he'll be Tack McKinley, essentially, right? Come in on off downs. Maybe if they want to go 5-3 or 5-2 or whatever the alignment is, and have that 5th guy on there so they could have Clowney kind of play inside 4-eye, power 4, and then have Chase on that outside shoulder. And the reason you do this, and forgive me if I'm going a little bit too fast here, the reason you do this with Clowney and Chase is the same reason you did it with Tack McKinley, right? With Tack, you want Tack attacking that outside left shoulder, using his speed rush, getting his dip, getting underneath, and kind of stressing that left tackle or tight end, whatever combo they put there. And remember, if they have a tight end on Myles Garrett, which they most certainly will, if they have another tight end on that side, there's only 2 wide receivers, and boom, you're good, right? Because unless they decided they're going to kill you with the run, which would be hard to do with your defensive line, then you have 2 wide receivers with 4 DBs back there, and 2 of them are really good in Greg Newsome and Denzel Ward. So if you stress a team and make them do that, then you force them to be out of position there just to protect the line. Now, most teams aren't going to do that. They'll take the sacrifice. They'll put the one tight end on the side of Myles Garrett and live with it. And what that means is that you'll have a left tackle who you can then attack on both shoulders. So you can have Chase on that outside shoulder, let him stress him that way. Most of the time, he might not even go. He might just take 2 steps upfield and then put his arm out and kind of just hold his gap right there, just in case a quarterback scrambles, or maybe it's a run or an outlet or a screen. He'll just kind of hold that zone there, or hold his gap hold his edge right there. But that presence of him lining up right there on that outside shoulder at the 5 position on the defensive line will put enough stress on that left tackle to where they have to worry about it or peek at it. And what Clowney can do really well is use his hands to get a rush on that inside shoulder of that left tackle. So then you put him in a compromising position. You allow Clowney to get upfield. Clowney's really athletic. Miles, you're going to trust, is going to get some level of penetration that's going to move the pocket towards that side. And then all of a sudden now you have a situation where Clowney's going to penetrate the interior of that pocket. If you get any pressure from Perrion or Sheldon Day, which you probably shouldn't from Sheldon should probably just be holding. But if you get pressure from Perrion and you get pressure from Miles and you get pressure from Jadeveon, and then you have Chase being holding his integrity, right? Holding that lane on the outside. So if the quarterback kind of slips out of a sack and rolls out to his side, that he can make that play, then all of a sudden you put the quarterback in a basket, and you can do it with just your defensive line alignments. 5 guys is all it took, right, to do that, or four to 5 guys. If you can do that consistently in an NFL game, you're going to win a lot of matchups defensively, just because not a lot of teams can do anything about that, right? We could talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and all the wide receivers they have all we want, but this is why the Cleveland Browns have consistently won against the Cincinnati Bengals, is because when the Bengals play against Myles Garrett, they can't do all the Bengal stuff, which is 5 wide, trips left, trips and 2 deuce on the other side. Like, they can't really run all of that stuff, just because you have to sacrifice bodies for Myles Garrett. You all of a sudden can't have Joe Mixon running a ton of angle routes because Joe got to stay back there. Or maybe you got to take Joe Mixon off the field and put in Samaje Perine to help block, right? In addition to taking CJ Uzoma off the field, which they don't have him anymore, it would be Hunter Henry, to put a more blocking focused tight end in there, because you need somebody to chip and hold Miles. And if you stress them enough on that way, and then you have them rotate out, and remember, since Joe Burrow is athletic, you can have Chase Winovich out there just in case he slips by everything. You're automatically set up in a position to be successful on the line of scrimmage. And yeah, will they get a couple deep balls to Jamar Chase? Absolutely. That tandem is like Randy Moss in a much better version of Dante Culpepper. Like, they gonna get theirs. We can't be mad at that. But on a play-to-play basis throughout a 60-minute game, that's going to add up. Those long third downs are going to add up. The difficulty to score on that defense is going to add up. And the pressure that defense creates and the fatigue that's going to put on a offensive line is going to add up. And that team's eventually going to break during the course of that game if you can get that consistently, right? That is why teams with great defensive lines tend to win a lot of matchups, right? As long as their offense isn't completely dookie. I know this is college football, but if you look at Georgia, right, one of the best defensive lines I think I'll ever see in college football history was that defensive line. Go look at, in 5 years, go Google that defensive line. If you're watching this video in 5 years in the future, go back. 2021 Georgia defensive line. Oh my God, right? It's crazy. It's one of the best defensive lines of all time. I'm confident that's going to age well. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But that defensive line was so good that they can have 5 guys in the box, get pressure, stop the run, and do whatever they needed to do. And that put all of these college teams in a bind where they couldn't do anything. Now to the NFL level, you say, hey, that's college. You can't do the NFL. Let's look at the San Francisco 49ers. How were the San Francisco 49ers able to get to the NFC Championship game and to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, who we have gone over on this channel, is bad. Like, worse than Baker Mayfield, bad. Like, objectively, if you look at certain metrics, he's not good. How does this happen? Because they were able to get pressure with 5 people in the box. You can do it in the NFL if you're smart enough. Joe Woods knows this because he was a part of a defense that did it. And this is the Joe Woods philosophy. He wants to get to that point, right? To where with 5 guys in the box, he can hold that defense and win that battle on the line of scrimmage. And then you can just smother teams with a good set of corners, right? Now, the thing with the Cleveland Browns is if they get to the point to where they can hold guys hold teams. And like, I don't think they're going to be good enough to do this on a consistent basis. They're not like a generational defensive line or anything like that. But I think against certain teams, certain favorable matchups, they will, and they'll look really good when this happens. But when they get into that spot to where they can hold guys with 5 in the box, it's one thing when your corners are okay, right? It's one thing when your corners are okay and you're able to smother a team with DBs. Think about it when it's Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome and John Johnson and Greedy Williams is somewhere in there, right? AJ Green's really good, underrated. You just drafted MJ Emerson, right? So you got guys with length who could play the inside, guys who like to tackle. Just saying, JOK there somewhere, right? So if you can do that, you're going to be able to smother teams defensively. Now, this is where I get into the expectations of the defense. What level of defense should this be? Because let's be honest here. If we want the Cleveland Browns to be successful this year, the one thing we need to be consistent from week 1 to week 18 is going to have to be this defense, just because that's what we know is going to be there week 1. We ain't having questions about if Miles is playing I'm knocking on wood. We better not have conversations about if Miles can play week 1, right? Like, those aren't the concerns. Nobody is getting suspended on the defense. Nobody is in trouble on the defense. There is really no changes. We just made additions on the defense. So that being said, what are the expectations for this defense? Should they play closer to what they did at the beginning of the year last year, which was not that great? Or should they play closer to what they did at the end of the year, which was pretty damn good? I think they should improve. I think you'll see spurts of dominance where they're able to just sit there with 5, pin their ears back, and just smother teams with their secondary. I think you'll see things like that. I expect turnovers to be higher this year, given the added length in the interior when it comes to interior passes in the slot. And that's where a lot of interceptions tend to happen, is over the middle of the field. Having that extra length there is just going to increase the probability of an interception. I think that gets better. And I think the safety play gets much better because they'll just have a whole nother year to like really learn the system. John Johnson really struggled at the beginning of the year, got better at the end of the year. So I think that this defense, I wouldn't say they're going to be a top 5 defense. They'll look like a top 5 defense for a couple of matchups this year, but I think they'll probably be hovering around that top 10 area. Now, I know Joe Woods' defense is going to be Joe Woods' defense. There are going to be some things about his defense that frustrates you, right? He is going to play zone. He is just going to do it. On 3rd and 6, the man is running zone, right? And he's going to trust his corners to tackle. Sometimes they ain't going to make those tackles. That don't mean we need to fire Joe Woods. That just is his system. That's how it works. And honestly, it works out, right? Because, yeah, they might get to 3rd and 6, but then you might push them back to like 3rd and 10 or on the next one, right? So it's fine. It's fine. I think that this defense is going to be really good, and that's really the anchor of this team. Now, as far as the Browns making more moves, I kind of already went over that. I don't think they make more moves after this one just because, one, now correct me if I'm wrong. I'm checking the Cleveland Browns' Twitter right now just to make sure, but I don't think they officially announced this move today with Jadeveon Clowney, which tells me that more than likely they're waiting till after June 1st to make this signing official. If you look at the money that Jadeveon's getting, it matches up almost very cleanly with the money that you're getting back from Austin Hooper and, designating him as a post June 1st cut candidate. So you're kind of recycling that money and just giving it to Jadeveon Clowney, which tells me that I think that they're done with any movement as far as bringing in another starter. Now, there's always the Baker Mayfield trade that's looming, but that's kind of the trade that's cried wolf at this point. I'll believe that they can get any value for Baker Mayfield when I see any evidence that I should believe that. Right now, I have no reason to believe that you can get anything for Baker Mayfield, and this is trending towards a cut, in my opinion. Hope to be wrong on that, but I mean, I can't lie. I'm not about to lie to y'all, right? And saying that I feel like anything but a cut is imminent is a lie, because there's really no evidence out there, nothing to make you feel like any team has the energy, motivation, or want to trade any assets, to take any money to get Baker Mayfield at this point. Maybe if somebody gets injured, but even then, I think we're greatly overrating how many teams would want Baker Mayfield in that situation, just because I don't think there's really that much of a market for him. If there was, I think he'd be gone already, because he's a good enough quarterback that if somebody wanted him, somebody would take him. But I've talked enough about that. That's my thoughts on what Clowney brings to this defense, and also kind of the expectations and how these guys can use these versatile pieces on this defense, especially within the front seven, to really dominate this year. I didn't expect to get as deep into the weeds as I got into in this video, so I'm sorry I didn't provide any visual aids. If you want to know what I was talking about at the beginning of this video about defensive line alignments, when I say 3-eye, when I say 3-tech, 4-eye, 4-5, those are defensive line alignments. You can Google D-line alignment chart and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, to see exactly where I'm saying that these players will be lining up, and it makes sense. Usually I pull up the chart. I pulled up the chart before, but I kind of got in the middle of a tangent and wanted to keep going with it. But thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.